With Sheri is a bariatric podcast talking about weight loss surgery. I am not a licensed professional. Any views and or opinions expressed in the show are those of the speakers and do not reflect the bariatric community as a whole. Always reach out to a professional with any medical issues you are experiencing. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show.
We all have a story on how we got here, right? So for me, I used to be over 350 pounds until one day I made the single decision that I wanted change. Weight loss surgery has saved my life, and now I am here for you. I want to hear your story. You know, the one that happened during that before and after picture. It's time to unzip. What's your story? Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unzipped with Sheri with yours truly. I am Sheri. It has been a couple weeks since we have been on. Our last guest was Anastasia, who was such an amazing guest, and that we are going to be having her come back. But for this week, we're going to kind of do something a little different because yesterday was my 9-year Surgiversary. And it's really hard to think that 9 years ago, I was laying on that operating table, not knowing what the next 9 days was going to be like, let alone the next 9 months, and especially now the next 9 years. So I don't have a guest this week. You're literally just stuck with me for the next hour. So I'm hoping that that's not going to be a big deal or deal breaker for you. If so, you guys can just scroll on by, no problem. But I wanted to kind of take the hour and just kind of talk about, the last 9 years for me and what this journey has been like. And since I found it kind of ironic because yesterday was my 9-year Surgiversary. And like a lot of people in the bariatric community or any kind of weight loss community, like you can have ups and downs with your weight. Like you can have regain and lose it again. But I woke up yesterday morning weighing 9 pounds different than where I did 8 years ago when I got to my lowest post-op. So I thought that there was something special about the number 9. My surgery date was 9/19. I am 9 years post-op. I am 9 pounds away from where I was at my absolute lowest, which means I've been maintaining for the last 9 years on and off. So I thought it would be kind of interesting today to go through what I put together as like the 9 takeaways that I have had over the last 9 years. So for those of you who are watching live right now, I encourage you guys to ask questions, leave comments, like whatever you want to know about my journey, what I've been through, my personal experiences or whatever. I still want it to be collaborative, even though it's just me. And then hopefully next week and the next time we're on, then we will get back to our regularly scheduled programming of having amazing guests telling you all about their origin stories and their journeys. Mike says that I'm his favorite too. I appreciate that. Crystal and Misty, I fucking love your faces. And yeah, if this is your first time watching, we sometimes curse. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, one of my number one takeaways from this surgery over the last 9 years is item number 1, surgery does not fix your head. It fixes your stomach temporarily, to help you jumpstart your weight loss journey, but it does not fix your head. And one of the biggest things that I have noticed over the years, not just with myself, but in watching other people struggle, is a lot of times we're so consumed by the physical aspect of the area that we want to change in our life. We're not happy with our weight and how it causes health issues and immobility and all these other things that we think that once we lose all the weight, life is just going to be great again. It's going to be sunshine and rainbows. You're going to do all these things that you've never done before. Then you start losing all of this weight and you realize, holy crap, there's more to the story than just weight loss. Some of the ways that it fixes your head that it hurts your head is, one is like with body dysmorphia. When you are losing so much weight in such a short period of time, one of the biggest misconceptions that I see with people is they don't see it the way that other people do. So we start losing all of this weight and you're used to looking at yourself in the mirror every single day. So you're not noticing the changes. And so you're constantly either comparing yourself to other people or thinking you're not doing a very good job, or you start self-deprecating. But what you understand is that when you're losing so much weight so quickly, it's going to take some time for your head to register what is happening with your body and be able to communicate to your eyeballs to see what everyone else sees. So if you're somebody at home who is having the complaint that you just don't see what everyone else sees, you think people are lying to you or trying to fluff your ego or just make you feel good, listen to them. They can see it. All they're waiting on is for your brain to catch up and be able to see it too. One of the other big things when it comes to surgery not fixing your head is we didn't all grow up and decide one day that being obese is the kind of lifestyle that we want to live. There's a reason that obesity is a disease. It's often caused by some kind of either childhood trauma or some kind of tragic life event or some kind of a stress or some kind of a trigger. And over time, you have learned to anchor what I call your emotional connection to whatever you're dealing with food. Because oftentimes, and if you think about it, how many times do you go to a funeral and it's nothing but giant food spreads, or certain occasion it's a giant food spreads? We associate food with an emotion. And so sometimes for us, it's a negative emotion. Sometimes it's a positive emotion. And so what happens is as you're losing weight with bariatric surgery, or actually with any kind of a diet or exercise plan that you have, there comes a point where these triggers are going to come at some point during your journey. And you have to recognize why you had that emotional connection to food in the beginning, and find ways to rectify it so that you don't fall into old habits and old patterns. I know for me, growing up, I was a very depressed kid. I wasn't very popular. I was constantly made fun of. I was bullied. And I was always grounded in high school. And it wasn't because I was a terrible kid. Actually, I was a goody two shoes. I remember one time in high school being caught in a tardy sweep. My senior year in high school, I've never been caught in a tardy sweep before. And I got sent to the dean's office. And never in my entire life was I ever sent to the dean's office because most people didn't know who I was. And I literally was sitting in the room and I started bawling my eyes out. And the dean called my name and I stood up and she looked at me and she goes, "Wait, you've never been here before?" And I'm like, "No, I've never been here before." And she recognized my last name as the same name as my brother's, who is in the dean's office on a daily or sometimes hourly basis. And she literally looked at me and she's like, "Honey, go back to class. We've never had a problem with you. Just go along your way." So I was such a goody goody, but I didn't have the best grades because I didn't care about some of the subjects. So I was constantly grounded, and out of boredom, or boys didn't like me, or I had an issue keeping friends or making friends because I was the awkward girl who was the tomboy. So you get to high school and the guys that you grew up with, you're now a cock block to them. You're kind of more of a hindrance than a friend. So it was a really awkward time for me. So I sat in my room and I would listen to cheesy love songs on the radio and record them on my cassette player so I can play back later. And I ate. And so I had an emotional connection to when I was feeling sad or lonely or depressed or bored, were four huge things that used to attract me to food, because in the moment it made me feel instantly better. Oftentimes if it involved cheese or some kind of a dairy product, it didn't necessarily make me feel better. It actually made me feel worse. And then you self-deprecate that I deserve this. I shouldn't have done this to myself. So we all have different triggers that we associated the oh my gosh, I'm a shit show today. It's been a while since we've done the show. But there's a lot of things in our life that happen that make us, turn to food to have some kind of an emotional release. So when you have any kind of a bariatric surgery or drastic changes in your weight, it will not fix that emotional component. And regardless of how well you are doing in your journey, life is always going to happen. Things are always going to happen where the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. Things will be stressful, whether it's at home or at work or in family. So you need to learn to find ways to overcome those stresses without turning to food or turning into other future vices, such as transfer addiction, when people can turn into alcohol or turn into drugs or turn into sex or turn into different vices because they don't have the food to rely on to get them over the hump. They need something else. So in order to have long lasting results for the rest of your life, you have to learn how to handle those triggers. And so for me, it took many years of writing down when I was feeling depressed or when I was feeling sad and I was having the urge to want to eat something that I wouldn't normally eat. Sometimes, as simple as writing out your thoughts and what you're feeling in that moment, you can recognize, okay, I was having a really crappy day at work and my boss yelled at me or whatever, and I immediately wanted to turn to food. And so by writing it out, you're at least acknowledging that there's an issue there. And so maybe you find ways to relieve your stress. Some people can find hobbies. For me, I love dancing. Like, that is my biggest stress relief. I can literally dance for 4 or 5 hours straight, sweating my ass off, and have the time of my life. But you put me on a fucking treadmill for 10 minutes and I really want to keel over and die. So finding things that bring you happiness and joy. If writing is not a natural thing for you, talk to people. There's so many people that are not just in the bariatric community, just in any kind of community, that we're all in the same boat. We're all dealing with the same issue. So sometimes by talking to other people and talking it out, one, you realize that you're not alone. And two, you guys can think of things that the other person hasn't thought of, or you guys can talk to me and like, I might have had similar experiences and this is what helped me. Missy said, finding new healthy coping skills saved you. 100%. What's your favorite type of dance? Oh my God, I am so torn because I am obsessed with Latin dancing, and I was learning the rumba, salsa, bachata is one of my favorite. One of my favorite dances. It's a very sexy dance, and I'm not very sexy, so I get yelled at all the time that I'm not exuding sexiness or femininity. But I'm working on that. And so, yeah, so keep the questions going too. Yeah, my Crystal said that my face lights up when I dance. I don't do it as often, and we'll decide what we want to talk about on this episode today or not. I don't know. I have not been dancing as much as I should, and I do think that I need to get back into it because it is such a huge stress relief, and it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel confident and feel like I'm accomplishing something. So that's definitely my number one release for me personal, but find something that works for you, which leads me into takeaway number 2 in the last 9 years. Find what works for you. Granted, all of our doctors are going to have their own programs. They're going to have their own rules and what you need to do and their structure. Advice number 1 is, in the very beginning, follow your program to an absolute T. Now, I know that there's a vast different regimen for all of us when it comes to getting ready for bariatric surgery. I've talked to people that have had to do pre-op diets that lasted up to a month before, 2 weeks, 1 week. Me personally, I didn't have a pre-op diet. I had clear liquids the day before. Some people are told to start puree after 1 week, after 2 weeks. For me, I was on liquids for a month straight before I was allowed to have any kind of mashed food, which consisted of mashed banana and mashed tuna. And it was on the same plate, which in hindsight sounded really gross. But when you have not had any kind of consumption of food in 30 days, you will eat the bite of tuna and the bite of banana, and you are not going to complain about it. And it's going to be the greatest thing that you've ever had in your entire life. But as you're progressing through your journey, usually by around month 6 or 7, your body is fully, truly healed. You're introducing food slowly. You're finding, which ones you have aversions to, which ones not. There's going to be people out there who are in the community who are going to tell you, you have to do X, Y, and Z. You can never use a straw again. You have to drink 100 ounces of water or a gallon of water or whatever the case may be. Some people will tell you that you can never have mac and cheese again. Some people will tell you that, yes, you can have a couple of bites for it. One of the things that I've learned is there are things that have worked for me that I can do that I recognize not everyone can do. It has taken me up until this point to change my entire relationship with food personally, whereas I can be somebody who can be out to dinner and have a slice of cheesecake or have a cookie or some kind of dessert item or have a carb or whatever, and I can have a couple of bites and it will satisfy my craving and I can move on. However, I do not push that idea onto other people because I understand that there are people who cannot ever have those things again because it's a trigger and they will start binging on it and then going overboard because they can't control themselves. All that means is right now, that's not an option for you. And that's okay. But if it's important enough to you down the road that you want to be able to enjoy those things in moderation and just don't know how yet, you can slowly learn, going back to step one, changing the emotional connection to the food. Um, One of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give when it comes to food is remember that when you have that very first bite, it's going to taste identical to the very last bite that you have. It's not like at some point throughout this dish that it's going to progressively explode in flavors and turn and be some kind of like a Willy Wonka thing where it's going to like, change shape and form and taste. It's going to taste identical. So you can learn to have one or two bites of something and not have to have 10 or 11 bites and still get the same satisfaction. But again, if you're not in that position yet to be able to do that, then don't. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise what you should be doing with your journey. I know that there's a lot of people that rely heavily on water enhancers to get their fluids in, like the ocean spray stuff or like the little packets. One of the reasons I personally don't do that is they didn't have it 9 years ago. I didn't have boxes and boxes. Like I think we had Crystal Light maybe, and that was our only option. And back then it was simple flavors like lemonade, and lemonade gives me acid reflux, so I don't drink it. Um, there will be people who tell you that that doesn't count as water intake. There will be people that tell you that it is. Who gives a fuck? At the end of the day, excuse my language, at the end of the day, if water enhancers help you get all of your fluids in for the day and you're not having any kind of aversions to it and you're not having any kind of issues and it's not causing any weight gain or whatever and it's helping you get your fluids in, do what works best for you. Just because I'm not one who does it, I don't have anything against it or anybody who uses it. I've just been so conditioned to drink water for 9 years that I'm just used to it that sometimes they're just too sweet for me. I kind of like it as like a little treat. Like I saw Missy and she had like this ocean spray. It tasted like a pina colada or something like that. That was the greatest thing. That was the greatest invention that I'd ever drank before. But for me, that was not something that I can drink on a daily basis religiously because it was too sweet for me. And then I'm going to keep thinking about a pina colada, like an actual pina colada, and I'm going to want that. So when it comes to your journey, you are going to know your body better than anyone else. No one has the right to tell you what you should or should not be doing unless they're a doctor and there's a medical necessity for it. But the biggest takeaway, part two, is do not let anyone tell you what you should be doing and you find a system that works for you. Because yes, the first month, or no, excuse me, the first year and a half of weight loss surgery, you are going to lose dramatic amounts of weight in a very short period of time. But if you think that 9 years later you're going to have those kind of results, you're batshit crazy because let me tell you, that's not how it works. So you need to find things that is going to help you along for the rest of your life. And if that means moderation, if that means water enhancers, if that means using a straw gets you to the destination quicker on your water goal, do what works for you because other people who have judgments on you are not living their life for you. They are not going to be consuming on your behalf. They're not paying your bills for you. They're not doing anything for you. This is your life to live. We all have different life schedules. We all have kids or no kids. We all have different things that we have to get done in a day, duties and responsibilities. You have to find what kind of foods and what kind of liquids are going to work best for you. So that is the biggest takeaway. Number two, Crystal says, pre-op, I couldn't understand why it was so hard to get protein in, but now I'm struggling so bad. It's so hard because, again, especially when you're really early on, we all react differently to protein, to foods, and everything. I know some people have had surgery and from day one had zero issues whatsoever. Me, I was overly sensitive to everything. I had tried different protein shakes and it would make me throw up instantly or it would make me gag or it was too thick. It wouldn't sit right. So I just became a creature of habit and I would do the most simplistic things and routines that I can do. Chris says, hey, can't wait to meet you this week. Chris, I am so excited to meet you this weekend. For those of you listening to the show, one of my treats to myself for celebrating my Surgiversary is I am going out of the country for technically the second time. I went on a cruise, but I don't consider that going out of the country. But I am going to Canada for a bariatric meetup this weekend. And I am so smurfing excited because the idea of traveling and doing things that I've never done before. And we're going to get into the why, but I really want to enjoy the small moments. And we're going to get into that in a little bit too. Takeaway number 3. And I think this is one of the biggest things that people need to take away. Fuck the scale. Fuck the scale. I can't tell you how many times, and myself included, you step on the scale, you're not getting the results you want, you've been at a stall for 3 weeks, you're frustrated, you get inside your head, you're a failure. Why is this not working? I've increased my protein, I've increased my water. Why is the scale not moving? Why the scale. Some of us have been known to weigh ourselves 2 or 3 times in a single day, thinking that something magical is going to happen to the scale and that you're going to magically lose the 10 pounds in a matter of 3 hours. The scale is a lie. The scale is not your friend. I know that that's tough to hear because a lot of us are besties with the scale, but the scale does not have your best interest at heart. The scale is constantly wearing a mask. It's pretending. Think of the scale as a narcissist who is going out pretending to be like this magical thing or whatever, but deep down, it's not true. And let me explain to you why. So when I had surgery, I was over 350 pounds. About by the 1 year post-op mark, I think I got there like 9 or 10 months. I lost 175 something pounds. I weighed 173 pounds, which I maintained for probably a good 8 months after that, maybe close to a year. Then what happened is years later, after I'd had surgery, I had a nervous breakdown, which is part of rule number 5, takeaway number 5. We'll get into that. But when I had a nervous breakdown, I was put on medication that caused me to gain 50 pounds in 2 months, which was one of the most devastating things that I went through. Because number one, my mind was batshit crazy and I was mentally gone. 2, now I've gained back a third of everything that I had just worked my ass off to lose. The point of this story is a couple years ago, I started going to the gym. I started working out. I overcame this stuff before. Last year, I was doing the 75 hard challenge, which consisted of 2 workouts a day, drinking all this water, following a diet, yada, yada. So since I started going to the gym and I started building muscle, while I had gotten back down to 185, which was 12 pounds difference than where I was at my lowest from surgery. And I was like, okay, 12 more pounds to get to where I was. But I noticed the clothes that I had from years prior were fitting. And I physically looked better than I did at my lowest. And what I learned in hindsight was because as I was changing my workout routine and what I was doing with my body was physically shifting and going along with what I was doing. So even though the scale was 12 pounds higher than it was, I looked better than I did years prior because my body was toning. I was building muscle. And your body is going to physically shift and it's going to carry the weight differently. With that being said, last year, as a lot of people know, I threw my back out. Ironically, a year ago when I did my 8-year Surgiversary episode, I was wearing an ice pack on my back because I threw my back out and was bedridden for a couple of months, and I gained 25 pounds. And so again, the scale fucks with you and puts you in a negative headspace. But this year, since I've been doing MOBA challenges, I've been a lot more active in the gym. I was dancing more. I noticed that I was 183 this morning. So I'm still 10 pounds away from where I was last year and 7 years ago or 8 years ago. And I feel like I physically look different now than I did a year ago. It's the same number on the scale, but my body keeps physically looking different. And I am more happier than where I am right now at 183 than I was at 173 7 or 8 years ago. So the point being is the scale is going to mess with you. It is literally just a number. It's the same thing as the number on the back of your pants does not fucking matter. I don't know how to turn off this, my watch, because it keeps going off right now. I'm like fancy and got like a watch for the first time in my life and it kept chirping. So I apologize for that. We just turned it off. So we're not counting our steps, but we're not moving anyway right now. Same thing with the number on the scale or not on the scale, the number on your pants. Women's sizes, number one, are fucked up because I have gone shopping and I've gotten clothes in a 10, a 12, a 13, a 15, a 17, And one time, even an 8 that I was able to fit into for 5 minutes until I couldn't breathe. And then like I open can of biscuits, popped open the jeans open so that I can breathe again. They're just numbers. Every single brand is going to be different. Every single store is going to be different. Every single material that they use is going to be different. I've been guilty of this myself where I've been obsessed over I want to get to a size 10 or I want to get to a size 16. And then maybe you get to that size 16 and then you go to another store and you put on a size 16 and you could barely fit it over your thighs and you're like, "Well, oh my gosh, am I a fat cow now because I can't fit it over my thighs?" No, it's because it's just the number. You need to be focused on what your reflection is like in the mirror. That is what's going to determine how successful you are or how you feel. So, takeaway number 3, fuck the scale, tell your friends, put out a memo. Check it off the list. Um, Takeaway number 4, it's not, it doesn't seem like a major one. The scale can kiss my grits. Amen, Crystal. Takeaway number 4, enjoy the small moments. When you first have surgery, there's so many big picture items that you have. If you want to be running, if you have kids and you want to be able to run around with your kids, if you want to get on an amusement park, you want to cross your legs, like there's all these really big goals that you have. You want to wear that bathing suit for the first time. You want to do jumping jacks, whatever it is. There's so many NSVs that happen so early on. Don't don't not take the time to appreciate every single NSV that you have, whether it's big or small. Because something happens after the first year and year and a half when the majority of your weight has been coming off, you're not going to have the same amount of NSVs on a daily, weekly, monthly basis as you had before. And so some people start to get kind of sad that the honeymoon phase is over. It's kind of like when you're in a new relationship and you're holding hands all the time and like, is he gonna kiss me? Is he not gonna kiss me? And then the first time, you dunk dunk or like whatever. Like there's all of these firsts that you have, and then after a while you've been together a year or two and it's not as exciting and it's not as, exhilarating, and you're not having all these firsts anymore. And that's the time that you really start to put the work in and you work on the communication and you work on keeping things spicy and building the relationship and deepening, the value of your relationship. And the same thing goes when it comes to NSVs and certain goals that you have. But don't forget to be humbled by every single one of them that you have, because there was a time when you couldn't do this. And there's a time 9 years later, there are moments where I do forget what it was like to really struggle. Last year was very humbling for me when I threw my back out, because I was literally doing cartwheels the week before. I was hanging from a stripper pole days before. I was doing all these amazing things. And in a blink of an eye, I found myself unable to move, unable to bend over, unable to do anything. And I felt like I was over 350 pounds again. And I had to relearn to be excited for the little things. And the one thing that saved me last year is because I had done so much working out at the gym, I was able to lunge. I never lunged before in my life. And I relied on lunging and squatting to pick up stuff off the floor that I dropped or to be able to get things out of the fridge. So be humbled by everything that you have now. And some people might get to those accomplishments faster than you, and that's okay. When it's your time to shine and really appreciate it. One of the things you can't see because I'm pointing, you can't see behind the camera. I have a mason jar. And the first year and a half or so, every single NSV that I had, I wrote on a piece of paper what I did and I dated it and I threw it in the jar. And it was my way of like, there was going to be times I knew that I might be forgetting about some of these moments, or there's going to be days where you're looking in the mirror and you're having a body dysmorphia day. You're not feeling good about yourself. Like you're being overly hard because you've been stalled or plateaued for a long time. Take out the mason jar or jar or cup or whatever and start pulling through them and be like, oh my God. I wrote in there the first time that I crossed my legs, the first time that I sat Indian style, the first time I did that cartwheel, the first time that I went into a bathroom stall that wasn't the handicap stall and I didn't need the bar to pull myself up and down, sitting in a restaurant booth, the first time I wrapped a towel around my waist that was a normal size towel and not like some oversized plus size towel or a beach towel. Write down all of these little moments, because on those days that you are not feeling your best, pull it out and remind yourself how fucking far you have come since the beginning stages. And think about, and like Crystal is a perfect example, when you're in the first couple weeks of surgery and you really can't eat the foods and you're barely on the pureed stage and you're hating life right now, start visualizing the things that you want now, because you're going to look back on this moment going, oh my God, I would drink those 1 ounce sips of protein all over again if it meant that I got to be able to cross my legs a week from now, or to be able to do those things. It will all help you paint this bigger picture and come full circle and understand truly how many changes in your life have come for the better. So takeaway number 4, enjoy the small moments. I'm looking over comments. Yeah, I'll take a little daily NSV over a huge one every single time. Or in Crystal's case, your gallbladder can fucking die and then you have to go back on liquid diet. But again, that is a temporary setback. Takeaway number 5. And I don't know how many people are too far out, like me or whatever, but I noticed that somebody just went through this recently. And it's, do not do too much too soon because you have the energy for it and burn yourself out. That is what happened to me when I had my nervous breakdown. Is after losing 175 pounds, I was bouncing off the walls. I thought I became indestructible. Not only was my headspace really strong, I was physically stronger. There was so much more I could do. I was currently working 2 jobs at the time because I was like, I'm a fucking badass and I have the energy to work these 2 jobs and I'm going to make more money and I'm going to pay off debt and I'm going to do all these amazing things. And then life was happening and my grandmother had dementia at the time. And because I was the closest one, I was the one doing everything. And I thought I was indestructible. And there was a reason I had the surgery when I did. It was so that I can take care of my grandma. And if you've ever dealt with anybody who's had dementia, you know how debilitating it is, not only for the person going through it, but for anybody who has to be around that and watch in real time somebody's mind slowly going. And so what turned into hanging out once a week and checking up on her turned into working 2 jobs and then leaving work and going to her house for 4 to 5 hours a day because she could not be left alone. And then it turned into getting phone calls at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because she went missing because she wandered, because the kids were at the school bus or whatever, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning and she had to go get the kids. And I was literally overworking myself so much. I would not tell people no because I thought there's a reason that I'm here. There's a reason I have the energy to do this. And I overworked myself so hard, and people kept telling me to stop and take a break, learn to accept help, learn to ask for help. And I said, no, I got this. Like I am indestructible. I've said that multiple times right now, but that's how I felt. And then one day my world shut down and I physically could not function. And that setback lasted a good 5 or 6 months. And it was because I thought that I could do all of these things and that nothing could happen to me because I was on top of the world. And I get it. Most of us have spent our whole lives often being obese and being limited and not being able to do things. And then all of a sudden this, hold has been taken off of us and we feel limitless and we feel indestructible and unstoppable and we can do all of these things. And I know it's exciting to take on all of these things and saying like, I could have never done all of this before. And I'm trying to teach people or just encourage, slow down. Like you don't have to do everything all at once. Take your time with it. You still need to learn to say no. Many of us were people pleasers. So we're so used to being yes people because we thought it was going to make people like us or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to put yourself first. You have to make sure that you are mentally, physically, and emotionally in a stable position on a daily basis before you can start giving more of yourself to others than you normally would have before. So I know, and you guys are all going to go through it because I just helped somebody recently and I warned her. I said, honey, you are doing too much right now. You need to. And she's like, no, I've never been able to do this. I have so much energy. Like I'm a fucking rock star. And I'm like, I'm not projecting. I do not want, because again, you need to find what works for you. You need to do your own thing. But I said, I'm just concerned based on the trajectory you're on. I saw a lot of myself in her and I was concerned, but I didn't want to overly project to the point where I was manifesting it for her. And then sure enough, that's exactly what happened is she burned herself out. Her body physically shut down for a little bit and she's slowly kind of getting acclimated. But it's not worth it when you're knocked off your ass so far behind that it can take you months to recover. It's just not worth it. This surgery is for the rest of your life. This lifestyle is for the rest of your life. You don't have to conquer Rome in a day or in a month. So just take your time with everything. Do not rush the process. Um, Keep your gallbladder yo. That's right. Oh, Morgana danced on a bar at Coyote Ugly. I did that for the first time this year when I was at the Daytona meetup. Um, that was freaking incredible. I got to dance on the bar and I didn't fall over and it was kind of cool. Um, hey Candace. Um, so number 6 takeaway. Oh, I think we're fairly good on time. And if you guys have questions, make sure you ask questions too, because otherwise I'm just gonna keep fucking rambling on. Uh, my biggest takeaway number 6 is to visualize exactly what you want. I have been a firm believer since day one about manifesting the results that you want, not just with weight loss, with your life in general. So this takeaway does not apply necessarily just to weight loss or bariatric surgery. I think that anybody can use this and utilize it in their own personal life. When I watched The Secret, the documentary many years ago, it was a fucking game changer for me. I had a vision board within 24 hours. I was manifesting shit like crazy. The very first item I put on there was a Mustang convertible because even though I'm not overly fancy schmancy, that was something that I've always wanted in my life. A month later, somehow I got a Mustang convertible. And if you know me, I still drive a Mustang convertible to this day. So the minute that first NSV came on, I went back to the board and I loaded that shit with so much fucking things on there. And I can't tell you how many of those things have come true or have come to fruition over the years. But the number one thing about visualizing what you want is you have to be very specific to what you want. Because if you're not asking the right questions or if you're not being specific enough, then you don't realize you're technically getting what you want. It's just not at the level that you wanted because you didn't tell the universe specifically what you wanted. For example, if you put on the board, I want more money, fine. The very next day, you might find a penny on the ground, or you might find a loose dollar bill, or maybe you're doing laundry and you found a $5 pill in your pocket, and you're like, oh my god, the universe gave you what you were asking for, but you weren't specific enough. So one of the things that I used to do for me is I used to go over all of my bills and like all of my bills, all of my credit cards. I would make a list of things that I wanted to do if I wanted to go on a vacation, and I would physically sit down and calculate how much money I need to make every single month in order to have this kind of a lifestyle. Nothing crazy, have my own apartment, pay my bills on time, have a roof over my head, have the utilities paid. And I would specifically fixate on a number. What I didn't realize until years later, I found old journals of some of these ones that I used to do from like 20 years ago. And it was amazing that I was making more now than what my goal was back then. But it's because I was being very specific. If you are single and you want, like, I want to find a good guy. The fuck does that mean? Be specific. Is it because he's interested in the same, if his favorite movie is the same as yours? Does he look a certain way? Does he talk a certain way? Does he act a certain way? Are there certain activities that he's into? Be very specific on what you want to visualize, because if you're overly vague, you're not going to get the results that you want. But the more specific you can, you might think that being overly specific makes it very unrealistic. There's a chance it might take a little longer to get there, but it's because the universe is manifesting all it needs to do to get you there. So I would love to do an episode one day with people and their vision boards, because I would love to see what other people, would put on their boards. Morgana, we are soul sisters. Yes, I think we should have a special episode or maybe a TikTok live event or something like that where we make our vision boards, because there are things that other people think of that I would have never thought of. I know that I have to update my vision board because there's been a lot of changes in the last couple of months that I was not expecting. So we kind of need to update that a little bit. But one of them on there is a mud run. Always wanted to do a mud run. I haven't done it yet. I've been nervous because of my back, but I feel like I'm 1,000 times better now than I was. I think I want to do a pull up really bad. Hand drawn vision boards are the same. Just be very specific in what you want. Um, so, number 6 takeaway, visualize exactly what you want. Be specific. And then, number 7. Number 7. My number 7 takeaway in the last 9 years is that weak people will try to break you, and its purpose is to test you. How many of you can look in your personal lives right now as you've lost weight, as your body has changed, and you have realized that there's been a lot more passive comments your way? There's been a lot more underhanded comments. There's been a lot more people treating you slightly differently or being more cold to you or being more distant. People talking shit about you behind your back. I wish I can say that you were the only one and you were alone in this issue. I can't tell you how often on a daily basis I hear people having the same issue. And look, I've been vocal in my personal life that there are over 6 billion people in this world. 6 billion people. If you think that 6 billion people are going to fucking like you the minute they meet you, then I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're batshit crazy. You're not going to have everybody like you. You are not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You are not going to mesh well. You have 6 billion different personalities in this world. Some of them, we have diseases, we have issues, we have mental health issues, we have personality issues. We have different upbringings, we have different lifestyles, we have different political backgrounds, religions, financial statures, ethnicities. We are all so different. It is naive to think that you're going to get along with everyone. Now, it's hurtful when it's people that you think are your people that either turn on you or show an uglier side of you. But it's so easy for us to take a negative opinion towards us from somebody else and not use it to harm ourselves mentally or self-deprecate or feed into what other people's opinions are of us. And one of the things that I've learned, especially in the last year, that I've been exposed to a lot more personalities in social media and in the outside world, is the people who bark the loudest against you are often the weakest people. And what I mean by that is weak people are so wildly insecure themselves. They're not happy with who they are. They're not happy with where their life is going or their current situation. And they see somebody that they are slightly intimidated by, and they will secretly wish for the downfall of them to make themselves feel that they're less of a shit show. They need you to have a bad day or to be a shit show to make them feel better about themselves. And all that tells me is that they are not strong enough to pull themselves out of it. They need you to fucking fail in order to make themselves feel better about themselves. And you know what? I'm a firm believer now. I'm okay with that because that shows me what kind of a spirit you have, what kind of a drive you have, what your steps are to want to better yourselves. People who don't want to better themselves will continuously talk shit about others or try to tear other people down or throw their little stones in their glass houses and whatever. I wish that I can tell you that this was just my experience. Unfortunately, I see it on a regular basis with people. And like I said, the more people and personalities you are exposed to on a daily basis, the higher the percentage that these incidences are going to happen. So just keep an open mind that not everybody's going to be your cup of tea. Not everybody is going to be, your person or whatnot. I thought I had a number. Oh yeah, I did. There we go. And that's why. Okay, so that leads me into number 8. Apparently, we cannot do math when we are trying to rush our notes earlier today. It kind of transitions into takeaway number 8. When you have any kind of weight loss surgery or doing any kind of personal growth for yourself, relationships around you are going to change. It's guaranteed. Why is it going to change? Because you are changing. I know, Missy. I was like, math. Math is hard. Um, Relationships are going to change. Intimate relationships, parental relationships, sibling relationships, friends, coworkers, besties, childhood friends, high school friends, all of your relationships are going to change at some point. Why? Because you are physically changing. You are emotionally and mentally and spiritually changing. That was the point of this surgery or having any kind of a weight loss regimen or lifestyle change. It's because you are changing for the better. And when you are changing for the better, there are people who are going to be around you that are going to change at the same time. Either they're going to change standing side by side with you and progressing with you forward, or they're not going to be able to handle the changes and they're going to fall back to the wayside. It is extremely common, which is why many intimate relationships and marriages and things will don't always work out for surgery. It's not because of the surgery, it's because you are changing and you did not change together, or there are things that you put up with and settled for a long time that you were comfortable with because either you didn't think you can get something better or you were just so used to the mundane that over time personalities just change. That's normal. And the way that I look at it is some people in our life are only meant to be minor characters. They're only meant to be here for a chapter or two. We learn something from them, we gain something from them, we detest something from that, whatever it is, they're there for a specific purpose. And in the middle of it, you don't realize what that purpose is until the season has changed. So there might be somebody who comes into your life that you guys were besties and everything was amazing. And maybe they built you up and they told you everything that you wanted to hear and whatever the case may be. And then shit happens, you're not friends anymore. But as a result, your personal confidence in yourself has grown. They brought a purpose to that friendship at some point, even if it didn't end on the way that you would have liked to, or it ended like drastically. There was a purpose that they were in your personal story. And sometimes, if you think of it like a TV show, some of our friends are going to be like the TV show Friends, where they're there. All six of you are there until the very last episode together when all of the little keys are on the counter and you guys all grew together and you had your lives together and you have your kids together and it's best. Sometimes our TV show is fucking Game of Thrones and our characters can come and go and they last one fucking episode and then they're beheaded and then like you don't always know what their purpose was in that moment, but there was still a reason for it. It was helping to move the story along. If you are manifesting and you are being specific with the things that you need to get to the destination that you want to, some of those asshats or some of these relationships had to be put in place to do whatever they were going to do to get you to the destination that you need to go to. So it's serving as a purpose. And I understand that some of our relationships are going to hurt more than others when they're not the same as how they were. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to, be sentimental and like look at the good times. But even what I'm learning in the last couple months is sometimes I'm hanging on to the memory of how it used to be and not what the current reality is. And so it's okay to have mixed feelings about relationships that are ending because, again, it served its purpose. And maybe the chapter had to be a close. It had to be closed for a reason because whatever I've been manifesting internally meant that some of these characters have to change from being major characters in my story to being minor characters or to being killed off, honestly, in some cases. So it is normal for relationships to change. You are not the only person. If it's important enough for you to want to maintain friendships and relationships that have shifted greatly, then you can have the conversation with them and you can tell them that you acknowledge and you recognize that things are differently and it hasn't been the same and that you guys are drifting apart. They have two options. Either A, they can want to work alongside you and build the relationship stronger and work on it and communicate, or B, they might be so far inside their head or dealing with their own issues that they don't want to deal with it anymore. And that's okay. You can still remember it for what it was, learn from it, what have you gained from it, and then you can move forward. And sometimes letting go of old relationships only meant that they had to be gone to make room for newer relationships. And it's kind of like when your house is very cluttered and you have a lot of shit and it's mounting all over the place. Sometimes as simple as purging some of the stuff will make room for better stuff. If your house is fully cluttered and there's so much shit everywhere and you can barely walk and you got boxes upon boxes, I might not be speaking from personal experience. I am speaking from personal experience. Um, how are you going to bring more good shit in? There's physically no place in here to put good shit. So in order for me to bring in good shit, I need to purge the past and get rid of things that are just sitting, collecting dust that I'm never going to use again. Who the fuck needs 600 goddamn CDs? I have 600 CDs in books that have gone with me from house to house to house for 20 years now because all I did was spend my money on CDs and DVDs. I got 600 CDs. I got like 700 DVDs or whatever sitting in boxes. The hell am I going to do with all this shit? So I am slowly purging all of this stuff from my past because there is so much good shit that's out there that I do not have access to because I physically have nowhere to fucking put it. So, yes. Declutter your mind. Do not be upset with the relationships. Take your time to mourn, but really truly learn from it. Figure out what you've gained from them, whether it's negative or positive. What have you learned about yourself, from that relationship, and take it with you to the next one. So that is number 8 takeaway, is that relationships can change. Holly, if you're lucky like me, you started this journey with basically a clean slate, no friends. And you know what, Holly? I know a little bit about you. I'm looking forward to getting to know you even more. One of the things that I love about the bariatric community in this day and age is that with social media, there is such a plethora of resources and support and other podcasts and other people who are further out than me, less out than me, but have learned it a lot quicker than I did. There's so many good people out there that are genuinely lifting, and there's a lot of amazing friendships. And like I said, even with the last phase, some of them are going to be weeds that you have to pluck from the garden, but there's so much good out there that you're in good hands with Crystal because she's pretty eyed. Oh my God, I can't believe we only have like 8 minutes left. Okay. The final takeaway in the last 9 years. And again, this does not apply strictly to bariatric surgery. The one thing that we are guaranteed in life, it's not weight loss, it's not money, it's not friendships, it's not love. The one thing that we will always be guaranteed in life is that shit's going to change at any given moment. I don't know how many people can be watching this at home or listening later. If you can think of a time when everything has just always gone right for you and you've never had the rug pulled out underneath you, you've never had a bad day, you've never had a blind side in any way, shape, or form. If that is you, please reach out to me because I would love to interview on the show because I've never met anyone who has never had a really shitty situation or been blindsided by devastation or whatever. And especially if you made it out of the pandemic without having any kind of like issues with that, then kudos to you. Give me a call. Come on the podcast. I have been blindsided so many times over my life that it's probably one of the biggest reasons why I do have my RBF face on a regular basis. And I do come off as a cold-hearted bitch on a regular occasion because I'm not an emotional person. But it's because too many times in life, I thought everything was fine and something shifted overnight and something drastic would change and your entire life, you are scrambling in an instant. Things are going to change whether you want it to or not. So you have 2 options every single time this happens. You can sit in bed with the covers on, listening to fucking Coldplay and Adele and like Morrissey. I'm dating myself with the Morrissey comment. And you can cry your eyes out and ask God or the universe or whatever you believe in, why me? Why is this happening? Why am I being targeted? Or you can assess the situation and think, what do I need to do to adapt immediately to get myself out of this hole? People who know what I'm going through in the last 2 months is I have been unexpectedly dealt with a divorce that's going to be coming my way after 17 years. I will be I am financially in issues. We are going to be probably declaring bankruptcy. I just lost my job literally 3 days ago. I was looking for a second job in order to take care of my immediate situation. If I need to find a roommate, if I need to pay the bills by myself. So instead of looking for a second job, we are now looking for jobs one and two. Um, I've also had friends, completely go psycho and become toxic. I've literally been thrown one thing after another, and sometimes my daily goal is to not scream and throw shit against the wall. My only goal for the day is to not throw things against the wall and have a fucking tantrum. But I also realize sitting in bed every day and crying about it is not going to get my bills paid. It's not going to, take care of my current situation, and it's not going to get me a job. So I literally have to dig deep into the deepest core that I have internally and find whatever ounce of strength that is left and feed it slowly. Kind of like a little garden. I have to water this shit slowly on a daily fucking basis to keep myself grounded and centered so I can fixate on the task at hand and move forward. Now, I understand that it's very challenging to not be in your feels and not be emotional when things like this happen because your world is falling apart. Like my life is literally falling apart right now, but I don't have time to think that I can't get through this. My only option is to prove to myself that I have been blindsided in my past before. I will be blindsided again in the future. And our character is defined not when things are going well and everything's sunshine and rainbows. Our character will always be defined when we are faced in the fucking darkness and there's no other option, whether you're going to fight or flight. And so I am not a fighter, and maybe it's because I'm scared of heights. Maybe that's part of the reason too. But I'm a fucking fighter. So going through some of these steps, I am being very specific in visualizing exactly what I need. I make lists on things that I need to accomplish and what I need to, get done. And some tasks are overwhelming, and some of them are months, of prep and stuff. Some of them are a couple days. But all you can do is fixate on one day at a time. And for all of us who have lived through 2020 and realized how the pandemic, literally, it didn't matter whether we were rich or poor. It didn't matter what our education was or what our political status was or whatever. Every single one of us was equally challenged by that pandemic coming because it was unprecedented. It is going to go down in history. Like they're going to write books on how we dealt with the pandemic in 2020. The way that people turned ugly against each other, the way that people were fighting, the friendships and relationships were deteriorating because of political or social or religious, differences. And there was so much ugliness. And I don't know how many people know this, but that is the reason why MOBA came. MOBA was formed in 2020. And the reason MOBA was formed in 2020, we're going to go a little over time, but that's okay, was 3 days into the pandemic, I was unable to work because I was not allowed to go to my office because one guy threw such a stink fit about having anybody in the office with him because he was terrified that even though we were like 100 yards away, separated by 3 or 4 offices in between us, we weren't allowed to be in the building when he was there. So we were forced to work from home. I lived in a house that had zero internet connection. It was a terrible area. So I could not work for 3 days. I went and binged all of Frankie and Grace on Netflix, I think. And I think I might have binged Stranger Things in 3 days. And I went to the fridge, I think 10 times in one day. Now, I've already dealt with a nervous breakdown and gained 50 pounds. I've already dealt with trying to get that off. I'd already dealt with a separation in the past too. So after 3 days, I went into a panic mode and I had a full blown panic attack. And in that moment, I was like, this is not going to solve my situation. Having a panic attack and crying and binging food and binging Frankie and Grace, which is actually a really good show. I don't know whatever happened to it. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. That I realized I needed to find a solution. So I called my sister-in-law who worked at Walgreens, and she was bitching about the job because the customers were terrible. People were calling out sick to work. People were, panicking. People were testing positive, like they were being quarantined for 10 days. So they were really short-staffed and they were looking for employees. And I said, look, I haven't fucking done retail in probably 20 years. I'll do it. I physically need to get out of the house right now because I cannot fall back into old habits. So she got me a job at Walgreens, and I forgot, one, how much I fucking hate retail, especially in your almost 40s. I was 39 at the time. Number two, I would not recommend ever working retail in the middle of a fucking pandemic because there's a lot of angry people who will come into Walgreens and they will get mad at you that you don't have sanitizer, you don't have the Lysol wipes, you don't have the thermometers, you don't have the cloth masks or whatever. And I instantly, excuse me, I instantly regretted taking that job because I was literally getting shit on by customers on a daily basis with their masks on and their beady eyes. And it's my fault that it was the fifth store that they've gone to and there was no sanitizer. And the one sanitizer we did have on that particular day was not the 80% alcohol. It was only a 60% alcohol. So it's not as effective. And it was clearly my fault that they couldn't get what they wanted. And after a month of doing that, my back was killing me. I was in constant pain. I was constantly in a pissed off mood because I was feeding off of their energy and it was sucking me down and it was making me miserable. And living here in LA, we had a lot of riots and we had a lot of protests going on. There was a lot of division in LA. People were fucking angry. And one night, I will never forget it. I was working a closing shift. Some customer had pissed me off for the last time and I was ready to quit. But I was like, I committed to something. And if I commit to something, I'm going to see it through. But I remembered, all of these times in my life, I've been blindsided. I've dealt with shit. I've dealt with shitty customers before. I need to find a way to take the immediate situation and I need to find a way to adapt and do something different. So I was stuck at the register and a customer came in and he gave me a fucking attitude because we didn't have bags or whatever he was looking for. And I always taught as a kid to kill him with kindness. So I started smiling at him and I said, bro, hypothetically, everything's open tomorrow. The restaurants are open. Everything's open. Where are you taking me for dinner? And he had his mask on. He's looking down and he was like, what? And I was like, dude, hypothetically, the restaurants are open tomorrow. Pandemic's over. Pandemic is gone. Like it's forever gone. Restaurants are open. Where are you taking me for dinner? We're going to dinner. We're going to celebrate. Where are we going? And he actually thought about it for a second and he said, Maria's. And I'm like, oh my God, the Mexican restaurant. And he's like, they had like Taco Tuesday. We were talking about fajitas and the margaritas. And even though he had a mask on, I do believe that you can tell when somebody's smiling by their eyes. His whole demeanor fucking changed standing at that register. And all of a sudden, it was almost like for the first time in 4 months since everything shut down, that there was a glimmer of hope that one day this pandemic was going to be over, that this is not going to last for the rest of our lives. And just having the little bit of hope, his whole attitude changed. He thanked me and had a good night, and then he left. I thought it was a fluke, but I was like, that made me feel good. I'm going to test this theory. And so for the rest of that night, every single customer that came up, I asked them the same question. Everything's open. Where are you taking me for dinner? And one by one, we were having conversations about the sushi joint. We were having conversations about the Thai place. We were having conversations about the Italian place or the really good bar and grill that has really good live music. And one by one, every single attitude of those people were changing as they were leaving the store. So much so that a month later, when things started to open up again, some of those customers remembered me and they came in, they're like, Sheri, Maria's is open. We're getting tacos on Tuesday. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's fucking go. And I was so excited. And it was like, sometimes they didn't realize that they just needed a glimmer of hope that things were going to get better. And as long as there's a glimmer of hope, your mindset will ultimately change and be better. And I went home after that night and I told Eric about this whole thing that happened. And I was like, dude, I was a fucking master of badassery last night. I got every single customer smiling by the time they were done because I'm a fucking badass. And he said, you should put it on a shirt. I said, nobody's going to buy that if I put it on a shirt. And he goes, you know what? I think you should put it on a shirt. And December of 2020, we had the first shirts come in. And that is how MOBA grew, was because it started with a simple question of asking, where are we going for dinner? So the point of my rambling is part of like my number 9 takeaway We are always going to have shit that is going to come and try to destroy us and try to break us, whether it's people, whether it's jobs, whether it's finances, whether it's natural disasters, or, whatever devastation. It will always get better. It will always get better as long as you believe that it gets better and you put yourself in action and find a game plan on how to adapt to your current situation, not feed into the negativity that's being pumped into you. You can always overcome anything that is coming. What would be something new you want to add to the MOBA line? Oh my God. Number one, I really want MOBA socks because I'm obsessed with cool socks. I would love to have MOBA socks. I want to work on some MOBA onesies, or I don't think you can call them onesies. I think it's trademarked. But I want to have powered by MOBA onesies for people. And I would love to have more clothing options. I want to have more pants and leggings. Um, I should make a 5-year MOBAversary shirt and put that quote on that. Where are we going for dinner? I'd love that. I love that. And like, I don't know if I think I might have told the story briefly on, an episode before, but that's truly like how MOBA started, was literally asking about people going to dinner and trying to at least get them smile or change the trajectory of their headspace. I definitely want a MOBA snuggie. There's other designs that I have that I'm working on, but as I said a few minutes ago, I've kind of had a lot of shit, delved into my plate the last 2 months. But I have been adapting. I have been manifesting. I have been very specific in the changes that I want, and I'm also starting to enjoy the small moments. So all of my own, 9 takeaways from the surgery, I have been able to take most of these takeaways and apply them to my current everyday life and get myself onto the next thing. All of the people that are coming going right now are serving their purpose to get me to the destination. All of the things that are hitting me from different angles, it's doing it because I'm leveling up. I'm getting ready for the next adventure, whatever adventure that might be. And even though, we don't like change, like I said, it's guaranteed. We can't do anything about that. And oftentimes change is good. Um, so yeah, so if anybody has any last minute questions before we wrap up, I definitely went over on my normal time, but I know that a lot of people are not as far out yet, and you will be. I really truly hope that any of even if you don't apply any of these takeaways, if something resonates with you in a way that, will make you be a little bit stronger tomorrow, or get to your goals a little bit faster, or even just give you something to think about, when you're contemplating or whatnot. Um, so yeah, you've created something so powerful with MOBA. I can't wait to see how far it goes. Thank you, Crystal. Why am I such an awesome babe? Oh my God. I think we need a separate episode for why I'm just so fucking awesome. I also am a firm believer in fake it till you make it. And confidence is not always 100% believed, but if you promote confidence, then you will slowly get more confidence. So fake it till you make it. If you're ever concerned about doing things, or thinking you're not good enough, or thinking you're not smart enough, just tell yourself you are. And if you tell yourself you are enough times, it's just going to manifest, and you're going to be there. So, oh, bandanas. I think it would be cool to have a MOBA mermaid tail. That would be kind of cool. One of my big picture goals, so I don't even know if we announced this on the show or not, but I officially own Master of Badassery. It has been officially trademarked, and I own the name. And one of my long-term goals is I want to launch a line of fitness equipment, fitness apparel, fitness like resistance bands and gym equipment, and like have like my own stuff down the road. um I want to get into extreme sports and like BMX rides, and I want to have MOBA like bike helmets, or MOBA boxing gloves, and MOBA like anything that has to do with things that are badass and extreme. um like motorcycles. Like I want to be able to put I would love to have a line of mindset journals that people can either do for visualizing, what they want, or like their own personal steps to what their personal meaning of being a badass is. And so there's so many things that are on the table. The sky's the limit. I have no plans on stopping or slowing down anytime soon. I might have stepped back for a little bit. Um, so yeah, so I think we need to have a separate meeting with all. I need to write down all of these compression wear. I want to have like, yeah, I want everything. I want to, like, there's a lot more cork hats that I want to bring out too, a lot more styles and designs, because cork hats are definitely the number one seller. I would love to have running shoes down the road. I would love to have more. I have beanies, but I want to have more beanies. I would love like an adult, like footy pajamas. I would love a bunch of crowns all over a footy pajamas or whatever. Like that'd be fucking amazing for the holidays. Blankets, you know. There's so much that I want to do. But on that note, we have run over time. I seriously can't thank you guys enough who've been following, this podcast since last year. I think we've already done like over 100 something episodes, which is just freaking unreal. Maybe not 100. I don't know. Math is really hard. We said that at the top of the show. It's probably not even 100. I don't fucking know. But it's been over a year. It's been a year and a half now since we've been doing this show. And I hope that entering year 10 of my Surgiversary is going to be filled with so much amazing shit. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, I highly encourage you to reach out to me, send me a message. I would love to hear your story. I'd love to hear your origin story. If you have not had bariatric surgery and you're a badass and you've overcome something truly remarkable or amazing, or were told that you couldn't do something and you proved them wrong, please send me a message. I would love to hear your story too. Like I think we're going to start transitioning, on the Unzipped podcast eventually to not just being bariatric related, but being very mindset related, and like telling inspiring stories of people who have overcome amazing feats that weren't deemed possible and that they defied the odds. And I want to start doing more motivating and more inspiring of people and sharing their stories and their journeys and their origins and stuff. So I seriously cannot thank you guys enough for being with me this time. And I don't know what my guest is going to be next week. I do know that Dave and Morgana are going to be upcoming guests pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, on that note, I thank you guys for joining me to celebrate my 9 years, and we will see you next week.